Hey, Composer Gloves here, and this is another video in Sound Synth Basics. Today we're talking about noise, specifically two types of noise, mostly for measurement purposes. The main, like, people always like, what do you use noise for besides like dope risers for my mega fire hot dank beats, bro? Well, potato chip, this is what you use them for. So you have these two types of main noise. There's other kinds of noise, but there are two ones you really need to be aware of, and I've talked a little bit about them. We have white noise. And what is white noise? White noise is equal energy per hertz. So on 1 hertz, we have the same amount of energy as we do over here at like 30 hertz or 10,000 hertz or whatever it is. That amount of cycles has the same energy as this one, and it randomly comes in. So over time, they will have the same amount of energy. Not like at the same time, but they will at the same time. It's a little bit confusing. So like you'll see if we go to a spectrogram here. We have these holes of them turning on and off and on and off. And this isn't exactly, and this is a little misleading in some respects, but we have these holes. So it's random, but when you average it all together, they all have the same, energy. Now I need to remind you of our relationship of octaves. So an octave, as we discovered, we hear linearly. And so an octave, so let's start at 20 hertz. So that's where we start hearing. And you know what? Let me open up some sort of a visual. EQ, 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 EQ2. Okay, here we go. So this band right here, from 20 hertz to 40 hertz, that's 1 octave. So this right here is 1 octave. It contains 20 hertz. Oh, yeah, cool. That sounds great. Now, if we want to go up another octave, though, we've got to double it. So we go from 40 to 80, and then from 80 to 160. And you go on and on and on, until we get to a point where it's like an entire octave. If you start at 10,000 hertz, you've got to get to 20,000 hertz. That means that like if we were to take these two octave examples of like 20 to 40, that's 20 hertz versus 10 to 20K, 10,000 to 20,000, that's 10,000 hertz. So if we're going to test, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. So we use these noise signal things. I want you to think about that though. We use these noise things for measurement systems. So we put them in and we want to see, what does it do to our frequency spectrum? Obviously, if we're going to test our system, we want to use something that has like all the frequencies so that when we adjust our room, we adjust it for everything, not just one thing. So now, when you're adjusting a room, well, let's stay on the topic of noise. I'll talk about that after this. So white noise does that. Now, this is used for measuring in some cases. Now, the process of measuring we're going to talk about, white noise will probably blow your speakers. And there's a number of other reasons why we don't use it for acoustic testing. It is used for electronic testing, though, because you could shoot frequencies as a representative of voltage. So electrical engineers will use this. Now, we have this other thing called pink noise. We talked about that. Pink noise, and I believe I talked about it in a previous video. Pink noise has a roll-off of 3 decibels per octave. The big deal about pink noise is that it has equal energy per octave. So if we come back to our friend white noise, we have 20 hertz, and they have equal energy. So they've got equal energy to all the other hertz. And then we have this thing over here that's got 10,000 hertz. 10,000 hertz. That means that once you've gotten to 20, so 20 hertz of that 10,000 is equal to that 1 octave down there. Now I've got a huge problem because this is like just going to stomp that. And so we've got a problem. We're going to sound really high end heavy. Our octaves are not equally weighted. So that's a problem. It's not cool, man. So what are we going to do to fix this? Well, I want to remind you of a few other, we'll go over here to pink noise. I know I'm jumping around a bunch, but I'm staying on noise. So we have this stuff called pink noise. Pink noise has equal energy per octave. Now this is very nice. And the way they do this is they roll off 3 decibels for every octave. So every octave we go up, we lose 3 decibels. So I'm going to come over here. Now I only have brown noise. Brown noise has a 6 dB roll off per octave. So it's a little different, but it sounds similar. So that is what brown noise looks like. And you can see that there is a roll-off as we get higher and higher and higher. And this is used for a number of reasons. First of all, you do not listen with your bass like 9,080 times softer than your high end. Or vice versa. You don't listen with your high end that much louder than your bass. And so that's already a big problem number 1. So we hear like that. Yeah, well, this is the second reason. We hear in this, and if you've ever looked up the Fletcher-Munson curves, I'm eventually going to do an audio perception series. That's been on my list too. I made like a whole bunch of lists of things I want to do, but I'm eventually going to have that because those things are super mega important for a lot of these principles. So peak noise aligns much more closely to the way we hear. We hear in a logarithmic fashion, but it's not quite the same, and it gets really complicated, especially when you get into the ear and neural impulses and like everything your ear is doing. It gets like really crazy. But that is what noise is for. So if you're going to measure an acoustic system, you're going to use peak noise. If you're going to measure something else, you may, use a variety of other noises. Now, when you're measuring a system, you're going to get a special measurement mic that's not that. Ideally, it will never actually do this, but it'll get really close to where it's like negligible. You get a microphone, you put it out there, and it's got a really even frequency response, and so it's gonna pick up everything. It's friends with all the frequencies, and they all come and hang out with this microphone. And when it goes into your system, if you see any unusual bumps, because you know that your peak noise is supposed to be equal energy per octave, so it should. You know what it should look like. And then if it doesn't look like that, then you know you're either deficient or have too much of some particular frequency. Now, I'm using a Shure SM57, and this is not something you want to run an audio test through because it's got a frequency response curve. It's going to color my results. I'm going to tune my room to a horror. It's just a bad idea. So don't use this. You want an actual measurement mic. B&K 4007, that's a good one. There's a few others. But yeah, that's the main idea for this. That's the difference in uses for those two types of noises principally. Oh, yeah. Now, why does white noise, you probably are like, why is it going to blow out my speakers? Well, when you're measuring a system, you do not shoot any small amount of noise out. It's not like what we were hearing. This is like totally listenable. It gets really, really loud, like 110 decibels loud. Depending on the type of test you're doing as well, it can vary what how loud it needs to be, but it's never like that soft. It's always really loud because you got to fill the room up with it. You want to know what your room sounds like. So, anyways, there's a whole bunch of variations. It gets kind of technical and specific after that, but that's that. If you have any questions, do some research. I'm not going to tell you how to do any measurements for your room or how to set that up. You probably don't even need to be worrying about that in your situation, but you do need to know what these are used for, especially because when we get into other types of synthesis, these types of weighting scales can come in handy. Like, for example, a Harmer uses Brownian noise, so the 6 dB per roll-off, to simulate a natural curve to what we would be used to hearing. So Harmer's saw wave is a little bit different than what a saw wave should be. And so I'll talk about that in the waveforms. When I start talking about waveforms, talk about that. So that's that. If you have any questions, let me know. Subscribe and have a blessed day.
Opposing blows. Reversing.